This week, I'm talking about Earthlings on Mars. No, not Elon Musk or Mark Watney, but the life forms on Earth that could one day call Mars a forever home. But Mars is a really rough neighborhood for prospective Earthlings. Mars effectively dried up 3 billion years ago. The small planet started to cool down, and as its interior cooled down, it lost its magnetic field. And when it lost its magnetic field, it slowly lost its atmosphere. This means that harmful UV and cosmic rays rained down on the surface of Mars, making any biological life that could have once existed there really, well, not in a very good state. Mars is also more dry than anywhere on Earth, and it has a low temperature of -51 degrees Celsius, meaning anything that you send to Mars effectively gets freeze-dried. Finally, the pressure on Mars is very laid back, by which I mean it's closer to a vacuum than anywhere on Earth. It's more akin to being 35 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, which essentially means you're 3 times the height of a cruising altitude in a plane. So given that Mars is kind of a has-been of a planet, what could possibly live on Mars? Well, everyone's favorite extremophiles tardigrades almost became our first interplanetary ambassador aboard the ill-fated Phobos Grunt mission in 2011, it turns out that a more qualified candidate to become Earth's first ambassador is actually lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic plant, meaning that it's a combination of 2 different organisms coming together to work together and be more awesome. Kind of like peanut butter and jelly or macaroni and cheese, but in this case it's fungus and algae, or fungus and cyanobacteria. The fungus provides the structure while the cyanobacteria and algae provide photosynthesis. We owe our history to these little creatures. Cyanobacteria was one of the first organisms to pump out oxygen on Earth over 2.5 billion years ago. And when this cyanobacteria and maybe later algae combined with fungus, they became a superhero. Why lichen is so cool is because it's one of the first organisms that's able to really break down bare rock surfaces and give a foothold for future organisms to take place. So what's really awesome is that a group of researchers in Germany took Antarctic lichen and exposed it to a Mars-like simulation chamber for 34 days. The researchers exposed the Antarctic lichen to things like UV radiation, infrared radiation, dry soil, low pressure, the atmospheric chemistry, the lack of humidity, and a lot of other factors that you could find on the surface of Mars. What's so incredibly awesome is that the lichen not only learned how to survive, but it learned how to adapt. And this is incredibly important. So the lichen was actually able to learn how to be within the cracks of rocks to shield itself from radiation after its initial shock from the radiation. And it was able to learn how to keep living rather than just surviving in a dormant state. This is exciting because while there have been other studies to test things like whether or not potatoes can grow in Martian soil, a la The Martian, those studies really hinge on the idea of being able to create an underground chamber and being able to pump constant water, air, and sunlight to those plants. This, on the other hand, is really about exposing plants to almost the surface of Mars, at least the cracks between the rocks on Mars, and seeing if it can survive. And it turns out lichen's pretty damn cool. So that's why I get so incredibly excited about lichen. It helped so many organisms gain a foothold on Earth millions of years ago, and it might be very well the organism that helps future organisms gain a foothold on Mars in the future. That's it for me this week, space friends. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and pledge on Patreon so you can help me make more geeky videos like this one.